two of my biggest motivations in life are fear and fascination. It's a combination of the two. You know, you're fascinated with how much wonderfulness there is in front of you. You look at a song and you look at all the different ways it can go together, and the way that notes work together, and the way that harmonic structure is put together. And then there's that little bit of fear that you're missing out on something, you know, so you want to know all of it. And so I got into playing a lot of different styles on a lot of instruments. And as a builder, that filters in, because I can't ever separate the use from the creation of it. I can't build a guitar without thinking, I'm going to be playing this. So this was a guitar, one piece out of a trio set that I built, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago. I got the idea that it would be fun to make like a suite of 3 instruments that are voiced and built to be played together by 3 musicians. I have a lot of appreciation for the way instruments used to be made and for old tools and things like that. So I built these 3 instruments using materials that would have been in common usage 100 years ago, or were 100 years old at the time. And I built it using tools that were all available at that time, and built kind of in the style, give or take, that would have been popular then. So if I was going to build a guitar like this, and I'm thinking about how do you go about doing the significant change, the single biggest issue is that you're not thinking about how you'll do it many times. You're thinking about, I just have to do it once. So maybe I'll do it with chisels and rasps and scrapers and other hand tools, because those tools give me the flexibility to build one guitar. But if I'm building a guitar that I know I want to put into the hands of 1,000 musicians, there's no way I'm going to teach a whole bunch of workers to sharpen and use chisels. I won't get a consistent result. Instead, you think, well, I'll build the one to start, but then I'm going to figure out some way to make all of them so that they're all consistent, they all come out the way that we want them to come out. And so for a guitar like this that was never meant to be replicated, you know, it's appropriate to build it with hand tools. It gives me ultimate flexibility. But if I wanted to build 1,000 of these, man, I'll do the one. I might even do 2 or a couple of prototypes until I have the guitar I want to replicate. And then I'm going to think about step 2, which is, how do you scale this up? What tools do you need to invent to enable the person to do this high-level woodworking with precision every single time? Even in our own Taylor Guitars factory, we build guitars and they come out of our facility in sequential order. You know, they have serial numbers and one digit preceded another. But the life that every one of those guitars lives, once it leaves our door, makes it totally unique. So you see that guitar in 5 years' time, or 10 years' time, or 20 or 50 years' time, man, that guitar has a story to tell that's uniquely its own. So I've always appreciated that. So I love this storytelling aspect of music. And I love that instruments can have a story like that themselves. There's a narrative that an instrument will tell that can translate, it communicates to the musician. So in a way, even though this, you know, it's just a guitar, it's a pile of wood, it's some steel strings and some old style finishing techniques. This one's French polished and kind of aged to look like it's 100 years old. This guitar has a story to tell, and it'll draw certain things from a musician. So I've always appreciated that. A number of people have asked how many guitars have I actually built. I have no idea. Honestly, it's pathetic because I'm not very good at writing things down. I was always just interested in the guitar and building the guitar. So a lot of times I'd forget to write things down. I started putting numbers in them at one point. I happen to know that at one point when I was putting numbers on guitars, I ended up with the same number on 2 guitars. The only reason I ever found that out was because I was doing some maintenance work on both of them at the same time and realized, whoops, don't know what happened there. But now when I built these, I changed the way that I normally would have voiced them for this archtop, flat top, and mandolin, because I had wanted them to be played together and complement each other if 3 people are playing. So the archtop guitar sounds, it's almost like a lower register extension of the mandolin voicing. And this flat top guitar is a bit more, talking about sound is really, really difficult because none of the words seem to match right, but it's like a very dry kind of a sound that sounds very, very supportive when it's being played with the other instruments. So even though it's this particular piece is a rosewood and spruce guitar, it has a response that's real quick and very kind of a shorter decay in some ways because it fits well with the other instruments. So this was the last part of that trio set. This was a classic maple and spruce mandolin, and kind of built in that F style. The little curly Q thing, I think that's got to be about the most difficult strap button anybody has ever made on an instrument. I mean, that's all it really does is hold the strap on there, but doggone, that thing is really tricky. Both my parents are hobbyist musicians, and my dad's a carpenter by trade, and he always liked playing mandolin. Played some dobro, played some lap steel, but he really liked the sound of mandolin, so he always played that. And it's kind of, as a kid, I always thought it was pretty interesting because, he's a carpenter, he's got real thick, strong, powerful hands. And to pick an instrument with such a small little space in between frets, I always wondered how he'd fit his fingers in there. But it makes it sound real good. So actually, I gave him this one. So this one belongs to him. He plays it all the time. I gave it to him as kind of a thank you gift in so many ways for so many things that I could probably never even explain. These 3 instruments, in a way, it was like a Polaroid of where I was at at the time when I built them, because it was right around the time when Bob Taylor and Kurt Listug and I officially started working together. So I think these 3 might have been the last 3 that came out of my original workshop. So it was sort of this, I should do this now because I don't know when I'll get to it idea, and as well as kind of an interesting bookend on a period of my guitar making life where I had spent a lot of time studying the ways of old guitar makers, old musicians, and older styles of music. I was really interested in the heritage of this, so I had wanted to do that, build these 3 only with, tools that would have been used 100 years ago and that kind of thing, just because I enjoy that. And so it's a fun, against the backdrop of modern guitar making, it's like this fun counterpoint piece. The thing that makes a guitar or any instrument great isn't necessarily even the tools that you use. Certainly the ingredients you put into it, the wood matters, but it isn't it isn't just the technology that you use. The thing that makes an instrument great is how much fun do you have when you're playing it. So certainly I enjoy these instruments a lot, but I don't know that I'd necessarily say they're better than some of the other instruments that we've made even recently. I mean, you play an instrument like a GS Mini. Man, I have a lot of fun playing that guitar. It's so accessible. You could take it anywhere you go. Is it made with modern tools? Oh yeah, you bet. We invented all kinds of interesting tools to make those things. The piece of wood doesn't know what tool was used to form its sides or cut its top out. But whether I look at instruments like these that were built with a pretty strict set of guidelines as to even a time frame around them, and I compare that to the way that we work now, man, I see them as the same thing. I'm using tools, whatever tool does the job best, whatever material is healthiest and best to use. I want to build an instrument that's enjoyable to play for a musician. In so many ways, these building guitars like this that were largely done in a very old-fashioned way. What strikes me about it was that if you think about the era when a guitar like this was first made, okay, call it the golden era of American instrument making, teens, 20s, 30s. They weren't thinking about building something with a heritage. They weren't thinking about building something in a tradition or with regard to any particular legacy. They were inventing new methods all the time. Whatever is best for building that instrument, that's what we want to do. Sometimes it's whatever's quickest. Sometimes it was whatever we can afford, whatever gets them built and out the door and working. Nowadays, so many of the things we idolize, whether it was hide glue construction or French polished finish or this wood or that wood, so many of those things, it wasn't because they had a reputation. It was that, well, that's what's common and works for us. It was about the instrument. It was a practical mindset where you want to use the best things available to build the instrument that you can today. So I have no doubt in my mind that if a laser cutting machine or a CNC mill, if those items were available back in the teens, you can bet that they would have been welcomed. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at building the instrument. It's not simply idolizing the process. It's about the guitar and how much fun you have playing the guitar.